You're live.
Vic, what's going on?
You got it. Can you hear me?
I got you. I got you. Did you go grab your
All
tripod?
right.
How's it
All is well.
going?
All is well.
There's
What's
Mike.
going
I see
on,
the
everybody?
disruptor is showing up today too.
The disruptor. I will wear that.
The
I will
disruptor.
wear that. The disruptor. I like that's a badge of honor. The disruptor. As a matter of fact, I'm wearing a shirt today of a disruptor. You check that out.
I might do some disrupting too. Mike with his Prince shirt on.
Hey, man, definitely a disruptor. And Prince was the man.
You know what's amazing is that for as long as Prince has been around, man, I only saw him in concert once, but it was one of the baddest concerts I went to. This was back in the fall of '81 at the Joe Louis Arena. It was Prince and the Time. Let me tell you something, the Time gave Prince everything they could handle that night, man. That was a bad concert. That was a bad concert.
Listen, the time showed out. They showed out, definitely. The time showed out, man. I saw Morris Day and the Time before a couple times.
You know, that's the funny part, Mike. I've seen, whereas I've only saw Prince once in concert, man, I saw Morris Day and the Time in concert all kind of times, man.
Me too.
You know what I'm saying?
Weird how you get to see them more than you even see Prince. But I saw, I saw Morris Day and the Time a lot of times. Oh man, I saw.
But you know what though, Mike? Back, Candace, this is before your time. But you know what though? They used to come to Detroit. When I was in college, man, they used to come to Detroit. They would sell out Detroit for like a week at 7 days at a time, Candace. Prince would sell out Joe Louis Arena 7 days in a row. Crazy. It was crazy.
Prince has a special relationship. Well, the Funk has a special relationship with Michigan. There's no doubt about that. Even George Clinton, the P-Funk King.
Oh man, now, that's another group I've seen a lot of times, man. Parliament Funkadelic, the Mothership Connection. What?
Listen. My first concert ever in my life. I was 11 years old. Well, no, I was less than that. I was probably about 9 years old. Me and my buddies. My buddy Brian Ingram, wherever he is today, whatever his mom took us to see the Parliament Funkadelic at the IMA.
At the IMA. Was that back in what? Was that 78 or 77?
Yeah, 78, something, right. So I was
at the same concert. I was
there. And I was a kid, and we didn't know about the weed. We didn't understand.
Oh man, it was a giant mushroom cloud, Candace. It was a giant mushroom cloud in the middle of the ceiling at the IMA auditorium. I remember that, Mike.
And the Mothership Connection dropped down, and we went crazy as kids.
No question.
It was amazing.
It was a flashlight tour. It was the flashlight tour.
Flashlight tour.
Sir.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
I was a kid going to that concert. I cried and begged my parents to let me go. But they understood I probably shouldn't have been there. But we didn't care. We went, man, as 11 and 12-year-olds to a Parliament Funkadelic concert.
That was one of the livest concerts I ever saw in Flint. That concert was off the chain.
Well, listen.
That concert was off the chain.
It left such an indelible mark on me that when I went to the African American Museum, I went and they got the Mothership Connection in the African American Museum, in the Smithsonian in Washington D.C. The Mothership is there.
I want the P-Funk. I want the funk uncut. Make my funk the P-Funk.
Yes, I want the funk uncut. And you know, listen. All of those people owe their livelihood to James Brown.
Oh yeah, I saw James Brown in concert, Doc.
Listen,
when I was a kid. Come on, y'all. Say it loud. I'm black and I'm proud. It was James Brown. It was Maceo, Fred Wesley, and the Horny Horns throwing down.
I bet you. Hey, Candace, when you said, "Okay, boomers,"
real quick. Shorty said hello to everyone.
What's up?
And QB said that your generation did way more drugs than our generation does.
You think? I don't know. I don't know.
I'm a Gen Xer. I'm a Gen Xer. So we sold more drugs than anybody else. We didn't.
I don't think so, Mike. I don't think so, because if you're a Gen Xer, then that means that y'all were like part of that crack era.
Yeah, we sold more drugs
No,
than anybody
and a lot of people did crack now. Come on, quit playing.
Now, especially Candace, back when I went to that concert, what, in 80, it was the fall of 81 at Joe Louis Arena with Prince. At the time, man, look, it was the Earl Flynn's, the YBIs was there, Pony Down, the Wrecking Crew.
That's gang.
I mean, it was crazy. Look, Detroit was on the chain during that time. You're right about that. Crack was, it was crazy.
Did you say 81?
Yeah.
The fall of 81, baby.
let me say,
Vic, so, my older brother wasn't even born in 81.
Who what?
I said my older brother wasn't even born in 81.
Right.
I was 1 year old. This is
why, and it didn't hit Flint till 85, right?
Yeah, it hit hard. Yeah, 85. Yeah, it did.
I'm saying this because I lived this history.
That's when it hit hard. That's when it hit hard.
I went away to school. I come back in the fall, and it was bonkers. It went crazy.
It did.
Like friends of mine who I went to school with. This is why I say we sold drugs. Friends of mine who I went to school with, graduated with. When I came back in the fall, they were in limousines with kids selling dope for them. And they were big time dope dealers at that time. They were driving around in limousines. What you see in New Jack City, they were doing that.
That was going on.
Doing that in Flint, Michigan, in 1980. In the fall of 85.
In Detroit, man, because Mike, Detroit was crazy. I remember that fall of my freshman year, because Detroit is right next door to Ypsilanti. It's about 20 minutes away, right? Right. So we saw the YBIs, man. 16-year-olds driving around in Benzes, buying Benzes with cash money. Period, Candace. Period. Period. It was with the Adidas warm-up suit and the election hats. Wearing the Kango wear and whatnot. That's truly New Jack City.
So hold on. Hey, brother Vic, you got to explain what YBI means to Candace. Is Young Boys Incorporated.
Young Boys Incorporated.
So Young Boys is in the name. So I think I have to say this to a lot of rappers nowadays. I say this to my son. Y'all didn't invent Little and Baby and Young. I didn't invent none of that stuff. It was already around back then.
It was around.
Young Boys Incorporated. This, little that. I mean, this is nothing new for us. But I always say this to people. Times changed after that. So there were people who were now probably in their 70s or 80s or whatever. Those were the people who had jobs in the plants. This is why crack was so big in Detroit and places like that. There was steady money coming from the plants and from
true.
So people would be at the factories. They would spend all their checks on Fridays, on the weekend, or Thursday when they got paid.
Yeah, because you had functioning crackheads. Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Not me. My people was too young to work in the plant. See, we was too young to even get to plant jobs. But when we was 15, 16 years old, 15, 16
we lost Mike.
Can you hear me?
There we go.
I'm back now. 15, 16-year-olds who were dealing dope back then. Those were my friends and people who were my age, who I grew up with, who were dope dealers and selling dope in houses. Crack houses were just the normal thing around here in Flint. It was the wild, wild west, literally.
Angela said that in 1986 that Flint made history with the Russell murders. You made national news with the Russell murders.
10-10 Russell. 10-10 Russell was the address where 6 people got killed. Murdered to this day. I knew 2 people I knew 3 people. I knew Juice, the guy who was the main dope dealer from that house. I knew a young lady named Kuda.
Where is he now? Where is he now, Mike? Is he still incarcerated?
I'm going to explain that. 6 people were dead in that house. I knew 3 of them. D. Collins was a good friend of mine. We went to school together. His father's a prominent person in this community. Jesse Collins, a wonderful man. His son was killed in that house. So at that time, like I knew these people. These were people, my kids that were my age, young men who were my age. Juice is a good friend of mine. We used to play basketball all the time. He was a big dope dealer in Flint at the time. And they said that, you know, one person murdered him, but I think it was a hit. Who knows? Some people say it was the police. And so we can get back to the corruption that trickled down to the police departments and things of that nature at that time. Lots of police were dealing dope. If you remember, in the mid '90s or whatever, you had a lot of police officers who were the sheriff's department who were busted dealing dope at that particular time. Doing dope and also doing the numbers. So you had the numbers game and the dope game, and just unbelievably flowing through the streets. And turf wars were literally happening every day. That's where I
But that was a crazy time period, Mike. You know, and the interesting thing about that is that the war on drugs was declared before crack even became an issue. You know what I'm saying? That's what you have a number of people who talk about and write about, but particularly Michelle Alexander in her book, The New Jim Crow, and she was talking about Ronald Reagan and others from the GOP who were really Ronald Reagan declaring war on drugs before the war on drugs ever even happened or ever even took place.
So, just a background for everybody that's joining us on Facebook. First of all, welcome to all of our Facebook audience. And the funny part is, Wanda said that she wanted that Prince shirt, Mike. And Wanda, that's where this conversation started.
That's right.
We went from the Prince shirt to the concerts to the drugs.
Right.
The concerts to the drugs.
That's right.
And QB also wanted me to tell you, Mike, that your generation invented the skinny jeans wearing too. But
I don't know about that. I don't know about that. Skinny jeans.
Well, Vic, the older generation is older than you invented skinny pants.
Yeah, I remember those.
Right.
We even wore those though. We would go to Goodwill and buy those old suits, Candace. Like really, they were like zoot suits, to be honest with you. We used to wear zoot. Look at Candace's look at her face. We used to wear zoot suits back in the day, and like you're right, Mike. We used to wear those pencil type dress pants and whatnot, man. But we would go to those nickel and dime stores like Goodwill and purchase those items as well, man.
I want to talk about this. I'll be right back.
All right. So let me say this about this. Now we did invent not the skinny jeans per se, but the colored skinny jeans. So you had a red pair, a yellow pair, and we had the acid wash and stuff. Back in the
stone wash and stuff like that.
James Dean and I would say the black culture or whatever invented jeans because listen, if you were on the farm or you worked in the factory, that's where black people worked. We had to look cool because we couldn't afford anything else. So jeans became our way of dress. Jeans and a t-shirt, right? Jeans and a t-shirt is what we kind of turned into a fashion symbol in the 50s and 60s.
And Mike, even in as far as hip hop culture is concerned, right? We would take basic items. We'd take a pair of dungarees or stonewashed jeans, and then wear some Timbs and a t-shirt and whatnot, and a Kango hat or an Adidas sweatsuit, and we were popping.
Well, look. The Adidas attire and attire from hip hop came from the streetwear, right? So when you couldn't really afford to go out and buy the high pair of jeans, so let me just get back to Prince for a minute. Yeah. Prince didn't like the jeans. He liked the high heel shoes, the suit pants, and the suit jacket.
But Mike, tell the whole story now. Tell the whole story, Mike. Now, remember, somebody just died who was the forerunner of Prince just a couple of months ago. Little Richard, who was the architect of rock and roll, he was the performer that invented that style. Then after Little Richard, you came people like James Brown back in the day. James Brown and the Famous Flames. If you want to watch the baddest performance, one of the baddest I've seen, not in person, because when I saw the Flames didn't perform with them, but back in the early 60s, James Brown and the Rolling Stones were performing over in England, right?
Right.
You can pull this up on YouTube. Type in James Brown and the Famous Flames, and if you want to see 17 minutes, Mike and Candace were a performer ripped the stage, burned it up. right?
Yeah.
In the movie, if you remember, Mike, you probably saw the movie about James Brown, right? Remember that movie?
I saw. Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
Right.
Yeah.
Remember when they showed that little clip with James Brown and the Famous Flames tearing up the stage? They walked off the stage and James Brown told the Rolling Stones, "Good luck, welcome to America." Remember that? Remember that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look.
Also, let me finish the statement real quick here. Also, Candace, on that show, there was Marvin Gaye and some other performers who were there, right? And they were actually consoling the Rolling Stones while James Brown was on the stage, ripping the stage, burning the stage up. And the reason why he was doing that is because he was mad because he already paid his dues. He already been a veteran performer or whatnot. He's like, who are these young jokers? I don't even know who they are. Let me show them what time it is. They want to be the headline act, and I'm not the headline act, and I'm the man. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I'm the Godfather of Soul. I'm gonna show them what time it is. He burnt that stage up, and actually, Mick Jagger admits that to this day. He said, "Man, James Brown was the man."
Well, look.
He ripped the stage. We couldn't do nothing.
We can take it full circle because it's all connected. Ken, we talk about crack and things like that and other things, but it's all connected. So let me make the connection. So years later, Rolling Stones are performing. Prince comes on. The guy that comes on, he gets booed off the stage.
I remember that.
So Prince used to go to Rolling Stones concert. He got dogged so bad at Rolling Stones concert, white folks throwing stuff at him. He wanted to quit, but Mick Jagger and other people convinced Prince to stay on board to do it. They had seen it before because James Brown consoled them, right? Consoled them about right? Sure, absolutely.
That's right.
And so Prince was able to use those James Brown tactics, find out what James Brown did. Listen, throwing a cape over your body and bring me a mirror. James Brown invented that.
James Brown was big. Please, baby, please.
All that stuff. The time Prince and the wonderful sounds of Minneapolis come up through South Carolina in the funk of James Brown.
But Mike, and Candace, let's talk about the androgyny factor, right? Because one of the reasons why Little Richard invented that style was because really, to be honest with you, a singer that's very charismatic and that's talented is really a sex symbol, right? And because he was living in the day of Jim Crow, he didn't want to be viewed as a sexual threat, so to speak.
Sure.
Because look, white females was adoring him, and he didn't want to get caught up in that mix, given Jim Crow was the rule of the day. Therefore, what he did was he put on makeup to make himself appear less masculine.
Angela actually made that point. She mentioned that it didn't matter if Prince wore high heels or not, that he was still the only heterosexual who got away with that because women still thought he was sexy.
Women love Prince. Women love Prince, man. It's true. That's true.
Prince still had sexy music. He never dealt. He probably dressed androgynous, but he didn't really deal with, kissing on men or the different time. So Prince still deal with it in a different manner. He said, "Hey, am I black or white? Am I straight or gay? Don't matter. But I'm still." All I gotta do is date a woman, and she becomes a celebrity for the rest of her life.
But hold on, y'all. You can't mention Prince though in that era without talking about Rick James,
of course,
and also Michael Jackson. You gotta talk about Rick James, and you gotta talk about Michael Jackson. You got to.
Listen, or David Bowie, who delved in the androgynous fame. David Bowie and other people like that. This was a time of the 70s, free love, free sex, and things like that. It was a weird time.
Hey, Mike, and since you got your Prince shirt on, I remember, Candace, I'm taking y'all back to the early 80s again. I went to go see Rick James. I'm Rick James, right? Dave Chappelle. Remember that, Candace? I went to go see Rick James at Joe Louis Arena in Detroit.
Right.
And they had this giant 10-foot plastic joint on the stage. I'm just being honest, Candace. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because there was this
Yeah.
battle that was taking place between Rick James and Prince back during the early 80s concerning
Yeah,
who was the baddest between Rick James and Prince. Remember
Okay,
that,
but
Mike?
QB
Remember that,
said
Mike?
Well,
QB
yeah,
said that that's not where androgyny. That's not the history of androgyny in the black community, nor is it the
Well,
history of
we're talking
androgyny in
that
entertainment.
contextually, brother. We're talking about we're talking about specifically. Mike was making reference to Prince, and
right.
and in the music industry, we were making reference to what's my man's name? We just said his name, Little Richard, who was actually the forerunner of Prince, of Rick James, of Michael Jackson, and that crowd. So we're talking about androgyny in the music industry, in as far as black musicians and artists are concerned.
Well, let me say this.
So it goes back to the era of Little Richard.
Well, I don't want to, make the gay community mad because
I didn't say anything about gay. I'm just talking about the look. I'm talking about the optics. I'm not talking about one's actual sexuality. I'm talking about the optics, and I explained to everyone what was going on with Little Richard because he lived in a Jim Crow world. He grew up in Georgia as well, and he was dealing with the Jim Crow South, and he didn't want to get lynched. Okay,
right. I agree with
white
that.
men who felt that he was making the play at white women. Ergo, he puts on makeup, right? To demasculinize himself optically. That's what we're talking about here.
You can't have.
That's the history, y'all. That's the history as far as music is concerned.
Well, QB is saying that Little Richard traveled in what was already a large and bubbling transgender community.
Okay, he may have. Right. I'm making reference to his music and the optics, and that could be the case, of course, absolutely.
Well, the point I'm trying to make, Dr. Vick, is this: when you delve into that era, you bring a little bit out of it, I guess. So Little Richard probably was. We don't even know to this day was he straight or gay. Who knows?
Well, there's been a lot of talk about his sexuality. I think he even admits it too, though. He admitted it concerning he dabbled in different things and whatnot coming along.
Right.
And you find that in the music industry, though, y'all. You find that, Candace, in music, in theater, in the movies.
Well, listen, I think it's a lot of these industries have had that. I mean, we don't even to this day. Luther never had any children. I mean, he dealt with certain things, but
but that brother could sing, Doc.
Yeah, well, of course he could sing. And I mean, I've been to a couple of Luther concerts, and women would throw their underwear at Luther.
Come on now.
But let me bring up the point you're talking about with Little Richard. So once that happened with Little Richard, we went into the Black Power era, and so it was easier for people to kind of come out and be who they were with their sexuality as a black man. But you're right. Before that, you could get lynched for having white girls scream at you. And let me point to this point: the greatest emulator, Elvis, when he first appeared on TV, all they could do is show his pelvis. And this was a white man, and they were worried about it. So you can imagine a black man
true talk, true story.
With big juke joints where women can grab on him, and he's caught up in the moment. He gets caught up in the moment with white girls. That's the last moment he's gonna see in his life.
Hey, Mike.
So,
hey, Mike. I think we're boring Candace, man. Candace got that. I see the cloud, the mental cloud over her head. These boomers, what they talking about?
But I think we have to talk about it in terms of this: the music industry and how it's connected to politics. Harry Belafonte, James Brown, James Baldwin, and so many other entertainers were the reason the civil rights movement was able to come through what it came through. They would be able to be financed. We wouldn't have that. I mean, Prince even himself financed lots of movements.
True.
Van Jones had an organization called We Can Code, where they had young people becoming coders, and Van Jones was financed by Prince. But people don't know that kind of stuff. And I mean, when you think about our communities, entertainers is where we could get our funding and money from. We didn't have a lot of gigantic black businessmen who could really fund certain things. They would lose their businesses if they did.
So before we started the show, I told my friend, I was like, every week we start the show. I do something as simple as say, Mike, how was your week? And the show goes into everything else but how his week was. And this proves my point that Mike gets on here with a Prince shirt, and we're all the way down the rabbit hole about we went from talking about concerts to androgyny. Wait, from concerts to drugs to androgyny to entertainers financing political movements.
Sex, drugs, and rock and roll, man. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll, Candace.
Right. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
No, I'm saying that proved my point about Mike and the fact that one question to Mike goes, oh, it is 5:30. And
well, see, Candace, his shirt is a conversation piece, though, man.
Yeah,
really, it is. Because you heard me say that we literally went from his shirt to concert to drugs to androgyny to entertainment and politics.
So what you telling me? We didn't get to talk about the trader in chief. We didn't get to talk about the trader in chief yet, right?
I wasn't trying to talk about anybody. I didn't bring him up. You brought him up. He must be on your mind. I was just proving the point that one question to Mike and you end up all over. That's all.
So you asked me a question. So let me speak to this point. We do have to talk about local politics, Candace. I think it's important to talk about that. I know I'm wearing my purple shirt in solidarity with the purple people of Minneapolis and purple people of Minnesota.
We didn't ask you a question about local politics, Mike. Nobody asked you a question about local politics.
That was at the end of last week's show. Somebody asked us about.
We literally said, all we said this week was, how's your week? And they said, I'm sure you got on that question. That's all that happened this week. Here we are, 30 minutes later. Now you talk about here. We got to talk about local politics. We didn't even get to how your week was.
Candace, this is your life when you turn 50 years old. You got a lot to talk about. You just wait for somebody to ask a question.
A lot of stuff has happened, right, Mike? A lot of stuff has went down, man.
If that is the case, given the experience that I've had in my short amount of time, I feel so bad for my children when I turn 50. So if I have children by then, because I'm going to talk their ear off. If Mike,
yes, you will. Yes, you will. And
absolutely.
Yeah, well, yes, you will, and they'll be forced to sit there and listen, even if they're grown children. 50, you have grown children, and they'll be forced to listen, and that's just the way it is. That's the way it's the way it is, Candace. You got to fight it now.
My kids won't be grown when I'm 50, but
well, you better get to work on it. I hear. What is that? I hear. Is that a clock ticket?
So should I bring my children into a world that we've been waiting forever for equality, freedom, and justice? Is that what I should be doing?
Do you want me to answer that? Should I be eager to bring my children into a world where people are so offended that they cannot be racist? That they have to hijack a movement, that they have to start saying all lives matter. Bar lives matter. Did y'all see that? The bar lives.
Are you serious? I didn't see that.
So in Texas, Governor Abbott has shut down bars.
Right.
And so you have bar owners who are upset. And so now they're doing a protest and they're saying bar lives matter. And I'm just thinking, is Black Lives Matter and what's going on? Is that such a trend to you that you can just replace the word black with whatever your issue of the day is? Is that what you think is happening? Are you so far gone, so far removed from the struggles of a people, a struggle that they've had since they were brought over to this country, or in some people's cases, since this country was taken from them, that you would say bar lives matter, that you would say blue lives matter? And when I say that, there's no disrespect to the police, but blue is not a skin color unless you're choking. Blue is not a skin color. Blue is a uniform that you can take off at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
So, all of these different putting whatever in front of that, and obviously, are you saying all lives matter? That's the most inconsiderate, asinine thing on the planet, because we wouldn't have to say Black Lives Matter if all lives matter.
Absolutely.
That's right. That's right.
And Candace, what did your president just say about the Black Lives Matter movement?
Apparently,
they're a racist movement.
Yeah, that they're
a terrorist organization.
Yeah.
That's hey y'all. Let's walk through this slowly.
Oh wait, do we want to be a point out?
What is this guy saying, Candace? Because
right.
allow me to put my theology hat on, right? Because in my thinking, the statement Black Lives Matter is akin to a phrase known as the Imago Dei. And the Imago Dei is a theological statement which maintains that human beings are made in the image and the likeness of God. And
Right.
essentially, that's what we're saying when we say that Black Lives Matter.
So
And
here's
who
the
is this
thing.
guy or anyone
Here's the
else
thing with
to
that.
question the
Yeah,
sanctity of the
yeah,
meaning of that statement?
yeah.
Think
We
about that.
first we gotta rewind now. We gotta rewind though. So let me tell you why that argument doesn't work for you and why your life doesn't matter even then. Because they took Cesare Borgia's image, called it Jesus, said it
Yeah,
looked like
sure.
this. So if,
Sure.
as far as they're concerned, racist people, as far as they're concerned, you don't look like the image and likeness of God that they've
We,
seen their whole lives. So no, your life doesn't matter.
which is amazing, right? So now we're
Right.
talking about the demonization of religion. That's really what we're talking about. The
Yeah, yeah.
demonization of religion and the practice of proof texting. I'll take a text, lift it out of context, and twist it. Right?
Right.
That's
Right.
essentially,
All right,
that's essentially what they're doing, to be honest with you.
but
But it
but
is
see, this is
profane, it is absurd, man.
well,
That
hold on,
statement that he's making.
but it's a tactic. All right, so listen. Right now, Donald Trump is studying at the foot of Vladimir Putin, who used to run the KGB, right,
Right.
and the GRU, which is the Russian KGB. This is how you do these things. So if somebody already Donald Trump knows he's been doing treasonous, committing treasonous activities, right? So you got to call somebody else a traitor. So now he comes out and calls the first black president of the United States of America. I don't want to hear those people to say there was already black presidents. We ain't talking about that. Like, let's not get in that right now. But anyway, he calls the first African American president of the United States of America a traitor, because you have to call him it first before. So that means everybody does it. And so if everybody does it, it doesn't matter anymore.
Well,
But this is propaganda.
don't forget though.
This is subversive.
Don't forget. Yeah, to your point, Mike. To your point, don't forget that he keeps calling her Hillary Clinton. Don't forget. So to your point, that's what he does is first discredit and make it seem like everybody's doing it because he didn't leave the
Right,
Clintons out of it
but what
either.
I'm saying is, but what I'm saying is, so for example, he's got to call you the name first. He says you're it's a hoax.
Right.
It's a lie. Right. So that way, when you say, wait a minute, man, here's some lying stuff that you've been doing, you can say, wait a minute. His people can say, wait a minute, Hillary did this and Barack Obama did that. And put up these things that aren't even an issue, that aren't near about an issue, right? And so I mean, that's how that works when you work in that environment of the KGB, of the CIA, of subversive materials being put out. That's propaganda 101. And we got to make sure that we don't fall into that. Let's talk about Black Lives Matter for a minute. So you put out people like Candace Owens who say we shouldn't have Black Lives Matter or Blue Lives Matter or whatever we have. And then they say black people are the problem. At the same time, they bring up certain issues. There's no what do you call it? Institutional racism, right? There's no institutional racism. There's no systematic racism. While at the same time, they start touting, well, what about the killings in Chicago? The killings in Chicago are a result of institutional racism, of systematic racism. Right? If you ignore bodies, if you ignore black lives, because black lives don't matter to you, you don't care about them getting killed until it serves as a propaganda piece for you to say, wait a minute, we don't care about Black Lives Matter. We can't care about them because y'all black people don't care about your own lives. But you're not understanding. When the police don't respond in my neighborhood, guess what happened? The same thing happened in the 1920s and the 120s. If you shoot off one, you kill one person running liquor, and his gang member kills somebody, then the other gang members go and kill someone.
I just want to point out, even as we have that conversation, and I understand what you're saying about pulling focus, I do want us, because black people say it all the time, they talk about black on black crime and all of that. They allow for that focus to be pulled. Murder happens in proximity. Most white people are murdered by other white people. Most Hispanic and Latino people are married by other Hispanic or Latino people. Most Asians are murdered by other Asians. And so it's not a phenomenon in the Black community. It's murder happens in proximity unless you're one of these mass shooters that go to concerts or schools or whatever, goes out of your way to shoot people up. Most of the time, you are going to be murdered by someone within your own sphere or world. That's what happens. So there's that whole myth of Black on Black crime. It's crazy. Crime happens in proximity. The only way that it doesn't is if you're a serial killer, and we know serial killers go out of their way to just murder people. Period. But we gotta cut that out. Is violence an issue all around this country? Absolutely. Do Black communities and urban centers have a problem with the fact that they are under police? The sad part is when I say under police, I mean meaning they don't have as much law enforcement in their community. So it's crazy for them not to have as much law enforcement in their community, yet they're still over policed by the little bit of law enforcement that they have in their community.
Well, because of the tactics. So you have stop and frisk or driving while black. You have these other tactics where you have, which we got rid of in Michigan, where you have a motor voter law where you had to pay $500 to get your license back. So it puts you in a pauper's prison. So now people are driving without licenses, but they keep getting pulled over, keep getting put in jail or what have you. But this is also another point that people forget. America is about money. Yeah. And so there's always money to be made on Black bodies.
Oh, absolutely.
We should never forget that.
Absolutely.
America was built on the money being produced by Black bodies.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I do want to read a couple of these comments. And Shardy did say, well, that is true that there were 5 Black presidents in America prior to Obama. I'm assuming that Hold on. I'm assuming that he's officially recognized as the first Black president of our country because he isn't mixed with another skin color like the other presidents were. QB said Mike is correct. Poverty is designed and has been proven over and over again that it leads to violence. It is no longer up for debate. Shardy said that's very true, Candace, that violence happens in proximity. And QB said marches, vigils, sermons, songs, poems, petition, votes for literally decades. I agree, QB. We keep doing the same thing. I agree.
Well, I agree with that. We're on the same path. And this is what I'm saying about BLM and things like that. We have to be careful who we attach our wagons to as Black folks in movements, right? Because once again, with no legislation like that, we run into the same issue. We have to have a Black agenda. What is that agenda, right? Or African American agenda. If you don't like being called an African American, whatever your nationality is, or you want to just be called black, that's fine. What are some agenda points that we can agree on, and those need to be pushed through every political process, whether you deal with Republicans, Democrats, or somebody in the middle.
So Mike, and I happen to agree with you, Mike. How does that happen, though, right? Because we are a very diverse, philosophically, politically, and otherwise, a very diverse community, right? And as far as organizations are concerned, we could mention any number of the usual suspects, but there's other organizations that are more local based and regionally based as well. And here's my point, right? So what's the best way? Maybe we should start off as a committee of one and then get with other like-minded persons and so forth. And then we have clusters of people doing this in the Black community throughout this country. What is the best way you propose that to happen,
y'all? Start with those common core things. And I'm going to tell you the best example that I can kind of use for this is, I don't hide the fact that I'm a Christian, is if you think about biblically in the Old Testament, when it was time for Joshua to take them into the land, and for everybody to get their land that, was promised to them, right? So if you take that same tactic and apply it to the fact that everybody's landscape, the geography, all of that, the demographics is going to be different. So what you do within your land, your core group is you decide what's important for you. So how does policing look for you? How does housing look for you?
Right.
How does,
within our community, Candace? Within the community? What you're saying?
So you take that and you decide what life looks like for you within that community, but then you have others from other communities who are willing to back you, whether it's they're coming to protest with you, whether they're coming to sing with you, whether you bring other people in who understand policy.
I like
and
that.
to help them get that thing that they need in that specific community. So it
I like
can't
that.
be one broad agenda. I do agree
Absolutely.
that maybe the agendas need to be a little bit more uh fitted for wherever you
Tighten up,
are.
tighten up.
They
Right.
and so then you take that group, and once that group gets the policies and procedures in place on paper and the implementation in the way that they need it, you then go to the next person's land or group and you do the
Yeah.
same thing. You move and
Yeah.
you move and
Well,
you move until
Yeah.
everybody is secure in their land.
And really,
well,
it sounds almost like you're talking about people connecting across communities across
Absolutely,
this
all
country,
right,
absolutely.
and,
all
and
right.
we
So
can
hold
also
on.
take some pages from the early Black conventions. Remember, we had a show about that, Candace, a couple years ago. We talked about the
Yeah,
Black political conventions and whatnot. We can take some
Right.
pages
sure.
from those books as well and apply it to the concept that you just shared.
Right. And like I
Well,
said, and me saying that, I don't say that to push my beliefs on anyone else. I don't say that to say, blindly follow a pastor or anything. I was just using a biblical strategy that was used to
sure.
ensure that everyone was safe and secure in their land. And
Yeah,
so I'm saying the
Well,
same thing of everybody's agenda can't necessarily look the same because
exactly.
where I live might be different from what else is going on in Louisiana. So their concern, while we all might have that same concern of police brutality and that's foundational, there might be some other little intricacies that
Absolutely.
happens there that
I,
they see every day that I don't
Absolutely.
see. And so
well,
while we can agree on some things foundationally, I think when we say, as far as an agenda, I think there needs to be a foundational agenda, meaning these are
Yes.
overall problems in Black centers and Black urban centers or Black places in America. And then
Yeah.
as we
right,
say these are overall problems, I think we need to delve into each agenda item and say,
Yeah.
now here where I live, this is like this because of that. So procedurally, this
Mhm.
right.
needs to change, or this policy needs to change.
I
And
like
then
That's
we
that.
move around as needed.
well, this is the point. This is what I'm all
I
about,
like
Candace.
that.
You brought it back to the first question you asked me. This is why I'm wearing the purple shirt today, right? And shout out with the people of Minnesota, of Minneapolis, right?
You stand in
Because
solidarity, huh?
not just solidarity, but to also
Okay.
bring a message home about Minneapolis. See, Minneapolis can become Detroit of the 70s, 80s, 90s, and early 2000s if they're not careful, right? So, in going to have a rebellion in your community, the powers that be will punish your Black community by not putting in businesses, by putting in what my boy Jesse calls an embargo. They will embargo your community and make all of the kids suffer, young people suffer for the next 40 years, and then they'll start building on the next generation. This is what happened in Detroit for decades. So
Mm-hmm.
if the people of Minnesota aren't careful, and Minneapolis aren't careful, you've got to make sure that agenda that you have that was working before. I went to Minnesota last summer, Minneapolis rather. Beautiful city. It's on the comeback. You think Detroit is making moves. Minneapolis did that 10 years ago. It's clean, it's nice, things are happening there. So for this undercurrent to happen and places to be looted in Minneapolis is a blow for the community, but also for the powers that be, right? So there's a understanding here of what will we build when this disappears. So Minneapolis, be careful. Make sure you bring in businesses that have share your values when things happen. Rebuild these businesses. Don't let them just take their tax money or the stimulus money or this COVID money and get out of your community. You've got to build businesses in that community, or else you'll be like Detroit was from the 70s, 80s, and 90s, suffering until 2050, trying to get your legs back up under you. Be
And Mike,
careful with
and Mike,
solidarity.
it sounds like, given this touchstone moment that we're living in right now, that now's the time for Black businesses, right, to
Sure.
also be strengthened as well. So in as far as our plans are concerned, we should also put together an economic plan as well.
Oh, no doubt, no doubt. And I hear what you said, Becky Brown. This is what we're talking about. We have to strategize on what Candace is talking about. Whatever strategy works in your community may not work exactly in the other thing, but Tip O'Neill, who is a great Democratic congressman, always said all politics is local.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's about local. So
yeah,
until I see the BLM, which I hope they start doing soon, until I start seeing a BLM candidate back for city council, for dog catcher, for treasurer, for commissioner. Until I see that, to me, this is just me, they haven't put the movement, haven't given the movement its sea legs. They can't sustain this for a long period of time. Yes, everybody will pat you on the back, tell you how great you are, while they walking you out the back door, and then they close the door behind you, and the show goes on, and you out the back door. We have to be very careful of that. So the BLM movement, if they don't have slates of people they run for offices, slates of people they run for everything from dog catcher on up, then I have to be very wary of how their movement's set up. Now, here's another point I want to make too about the BLM. The NAACP and organizations like the Urban League are not tasked with being able to endorse candidates. So can the BLM even endorse candidates? Because legally you can't really do that, right? If you're a nonprofit support organization like the NAACP, you can't endorse candidates because it's illegal for you to do it. So is the BLM even set up like that? Or are there an organization who could actually endorse candidates? Be like AIPAC and wonderful Jewish organizations that push the Jewish organization's agenda. And we should be, the BLM should be like AIPAC and these wonderful organizations that push the agenda for their communities. I don't care whether you're Republican or Democrat. If they're not moving towards that, I'm kind of wary of these aspects of just marching, like the brother said earlier, marching and protesting and all that. But if we ain't turning it into political capital, we're not doing anything.
And Mike, generally, I agree with you, right?
Right.
However, we have to be careful not to try to project something onto an organization which may not be its moniker. Like for instance, what is the purpose of the BLM as an organization, right? Well, what's their mission statement? What's their purpose statement as an organization? Maybe they're doing what they're doing right now to bring attention to the humanity of Black people. That might be their calling, right? But I agree with you, Mike. Generally, beyond BLM, organizationally, I think that we have to be multifaceted as a community as it relates to these types of things, these movements, socially, politically, economically, and otherwise. So I agree with you from that standpoint, but I think we have to be careful not to project something onto someone that they might not be.
Well, no, hold on, wait a minute. The point I'm making is, if you're asking for us to be a part of it, you're asking us to give you money, you damn well better have some results from what we need in our community. We can't afford.
I feel you on that, Mike. But Mike, that might not be their calling, though. Well, philosophically, I agree with you. Right. Philosophically, beyond that organization, I agree with you. But what I'm saying is that might not be their calling. I don't know. I haven't read their mission statement, right? So we need to understand what their mission statement is. What's their reason for being, right? That's all I'm saying. That's all. But I agree with you philosophically.
So QB did say that their website, and I'm sorry, I had to go hop in the car, guys. QB did say that their website explains all of that, what you're asking.
Okay.
All right, well,
let's read. What does it say?
All right. Well, right. And QB, can you enlighten us on that? Because I definitely need to, because the things that I saw about BLM were more about aspects of elevating the community, bringing up topics, but not the political aspects, which I think sometimes we become wary of trying to get into the politics of it all. But at the end of the day, that's how America works. And if you don't understand how a car works before you drive it, you're going to crash into a tree. So you got to understand how this country works.
And Mike, if I can add to that, I agree with you, Mike, right? Context, I think, dictates what our agenda should be. So contextually, we need to understand, I agree with you, what America is. What is America? America primarily is a capitalistic country. We have to understand the nuts and bolts of capitalism.
Yes.
I'm not saying that we need to become capitalists, but it's incumbent upon us to understand how capitalism works as a system, right?
Right.
And then respond accordingly. I agree with you from that standpoint.
Well, how we got to where we are now, right? How we are. I appreciate that, Paul. Look at Paul putting it up right now. The BLM stuff. Okay, Paul, you on point, brother. So I agree with how we're getting there. We need to understand how we get there. But I'm saying this again, and Candace talked about it, about how we put together an agenda and we wash it across our nation and across the world. We used to have Pan-African agendas that were incumbent upon all of talked about all black folks. I don't care where you were in the world. And now we might need the Wakanda agenda or something. We're talk about technology, things like that, and how we bring it to our young people. And so I want to speak to Candace's issue about bringing a young person into this world. Listen, we need all soldiers we can. So have them babies, Candace. Bring them on.
Wow, wait a minute.
It is wildly irresponsible to just have a kid because you need some soldiers and I don't have time. I don't think so. That's wildly irresponsible.
Hold on, Mike. Hey, remember, we're talking back in the day, that used to be a statement back during the Black Power movement.
Hey,
we need to make babies for the revolution.
All right, so wait a minute. Let me say this.
We need to make babies for the revolution.
Oh, good. Yeah. Wait, no, keep going.
Part of the issue now with the white power movement to get rid of abortion, why they've aligned up with abortion, because they want to have more white babies, right?
Yeah.
Right? So
absolutely.
They want to shut down abortions, not because black folks is killing each other with abortion and having abortion. They want to do it because they want to stop young white girls from having abortion.
Mike, indirectly, you mentioned something that is an elephant in the room in the black community.
Of course it is.
Because Mike, you know a lot of people like to talk about, abortion.
Yes.
And right to life in the black community, man.
I told you, listen. I just mentioned it to Candace. First of all, so let me say this: I'm a man, so I cannot tell a woman what to do with her body. Right? That ain't my space. Let a woman do what she needs to do when she's on that. Right? But I do recognize that we need more soldiers.
I think, but this is the thing, though. So let me help you out with that. So this is the thing. You're saying we need more soldiers. Whatever. And while you and Vic might be among the mindset of people who are willing to train up a child in the way in which they should go, you have to keep in mind there are a lot of irresponsible people in this world who do not need to be parents. And the color of that skin doesn't matter. And so to bring more people in this world to have an even bigger tribe of the lost doesn't sound appealing to me. I'm not saying that I would be an irresponsible parent, but what I am saying is, I get what you're saying. You also have to understand that everybody is not of the mindset to raise their children in the way in which you are speaking.
True. Candace, Mike, I gotta say this, right? Because Candace, you and I, we attend the same church, right? And I've got friends who no longer go to church, right? And we have discussions all the time. And one of the discussions we have is just this. What some of them say, some of them are agnostics now, right? And they say, wait a minute, man, wait a minute, Vic. Where's the black church at? Where's the church at in terms of the black family and the neurosis that we see in the black community? Are y'all addressing that issue about the family, about trying to heal the family, bring the family together, strengthen the community, and so forth? What do y'all think about that? What do y'all think about that, man? Because I hear criticism a lot from people who are not connected to the church, man.
All right, so let me say this from my perspective of the church. We used to talk about it, but because it's overwhelmingly feminine now in the church, probably 70% of the church members who go and pay dues and tithes are women. So if I'm a pastor, like I ain't gonna be talking bad about these women.
That's part of your call, though, Mike. Reverend. That's part of your call, Reverend.
So basically, Mike, all I heard you say was we should be excited that you're not a pastor because you would not be committed to preaching the gospel. You'd be committed to preaching the prophet. That's all I heard.
No, you missed my point. You missed my point.
I got your point. I got your point.
Okay, that's what the problem is, because there's so much profit in it. We face this as a black community. We face this in the black community when pastors were quiet during the George W. Bush the second era, when they were all getting that money from the government. Dr. Joyce had money, and all these pastors had money, and they were quiet. We didn't even hear from them in 2004 because they were supporting George Bush, most of all black pastors, because they were getting that money from him. It's about money for a lot of these guys.
Now
So
some of them might, not all, not most. Some of them might. Some of them were. Some of them were supporting him.
I said a lot of them. I said most. So I think most could be equivalent. Listen, think about it like this: we can't even get black churches to take one Sunday worth of money and put it in a black bank, and decide what we want to do next week. One Sunday. All right. So I can say that because I'm pure in my faith. I know who I am and what I'm about.
But Mike, you just said something. Candace, Mike just said something, because now, Mike, you're talking about a theology that moves beyond the walls of the church, and some church leaders are uncomfortable with that, Mike. They're uncomfortable with that.
Then they don't need to be leaders.
Social gospel, right? Right?
Then they don't need to be leaders.
Dr. King advocated, for instance. I'm sorry,
Then they don't need to be leaders.
Right? Why are they uncomfortable with it? Why are they uncomfortable with it? Hey, brother Vic, you said that. Are you in Tahiti, man? Where are you at right now? You got the bad food.
I'm in an undisclosed location in Genesee County.
So.
Hey, you look like you sitting up with a what's the drink with the little umbrellas on it? You got
a tiki bar.
Yeah, tiki bar, man.
So QB said that as it stands in 2020, the black church's report card as far as social justice is poor.
See, there you go.
Well, let me say that I tend to disagree to a certain extent. Listen, there are lots of leaders who come out of the church, right? The church may not be leading, but the people in the church are leading, right? So if you want to find people who are more educated, understand what's going on, more likely to vote, more likely to have families, you got to look at the black church, right? But the sad reality is it's getting less and less of that because the agenda is about catering to, the feminization of the church, right?
The feminization of the church, Mike.
Man. I'm sorry.
Mike, I need you to know. I need you to know that black women literally build nations. So all this gibberish you're talking right now is crazy.
I did not say they didn't, Candace. I totally agree with you.
The black women are bad now, y'all. Look, if truth be told, if it were not for black women, the civil rights movement would not have taken place like it did, nor the Black Power movement.
Listen,
the women did the bulk work of a lot of the work that was unglorified.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That was not glorified.
I'm not putting it aside. What I'm talking about is the strict adherence to whatever you want to do. Single motherhood is whatever. It doesn't matter what you do. I'm gonna nurture you, and my baby ain't never did nothing. That type of feminization. I'm not talking about the Candace Machat feminization. And let me talk to this point too, Candace. You talk about all these other people that don't deserve. That she probably shouldn't have kids, right? But that's why we need Candace Machat to have kids, so you can circumvent some of that. So one Candace Machat kid might be equal to these other 3 or 4 babies. The truth is having babies out here. We got to have some people who know what's going on have children.
So with that said, it's been a great show. Mike, go and give us your last 30 seconds. Wrap it up. Go ahead.
Hey, listen, I want to talk about the week of a traitor. I'm a soldier. I'm a veteran. Treasonous to our people, to our soldiers, who's letting them have a bounty on their head. And even now, let's say he wasn't briefed a few weeks ago. Even now, he isn't going to do anything about it. And the Republican Party is sitting by letting him do that. Think about what you call yourself a Republican right now. There's no way you can support this guy who's the treasonous leader of our community, leader of our nation. I'll see everybody next week. Fans will have me back, and I Right, that tiki hookup.
All right, Vic, 30 seconds. Let's go.
I'll make it quick. I believe, I agree with the Muslims when they say that of all our studies, history is best qualified to reward all research. And maybe this will lead into one of our upcoming shows. I think that we need to revisit a number of these different topics that we touched on today with regard to the church, the role of the Black church in the community, spiritually, socially, politically, economically, and otherwise, and then the importance of organizing ourselves politically and economically. So I think we need to master the lessons of our history. Otherwise, we will suffer the consequences.
Yes,
all right, and I'm going to leave y'all. I'm going to take my last little 30 and leave y'all with a thought from Shardy. He said, if I had children right now, I would raise them to love and have a relationship with the Lord, be people of integrity and treat people with dignity and respect, support their dreams and aspirations by first preparing and placing them in an environment to get a high quality education. Would also teach them about the importance of getting involved in politics and social justice, and finally living and being a true example, so they will grow up and help change the world. I do want to say,
Amen.
I do want to say one last thing though, is as you're building for yourself, don't forget everybody else. I literally do a show called No Neighbor Left Behind for the simple fact that I am of the belief that I am indeed my brother's keeper, and that no one should be left behind. If we don't have to leave you, I'm not going to leave you. However, I also am of the understanding that even Harriet herself said either you're coming or you're not, but you're not telling on me either. So keep that in mind. And with that said, I will tell everybody we'll see you again back here next week at 5 p.m. for Whose Opinion Is It Anyway with Candace
and Victor.
And of course, a special guest host for the summer. Mike never says his name right. All right, see y'all next week. Bye-bye.
All right.